Wait, how'd your grandpa end up in Brazil?
So when my grandfather is like 17, the family decides to move to Brazil. They all move to Brazil, and on the boat, my grandfather gets his skull cracked for the first time because Victor is sleeping with the captain's wife. And Victor and my grandfather look exactly the same when they're at this age. Like you would have thought they were twins.
Yeah.
So the guy sees my grandfather, jumps him, and cracks his skull with a bottle. And my grandfather spends the rest of the trip in traction, like laying down with, nursing a cracked skull. They get to Brazil and, numerous adventures there, from what I hear. The barber shop for one of them. My grandfather is in the barber shop in Brazil, and guy turns him away from the chair and gives him a buzz cut. And turns him away from the mirror and gives him a buzz cut. And my grandfather hates it so much he refuses to pay, and the guy's like, well, want to bet? Puts my grandfather through the window. My grandfather puts the guy's head through the mirror.
Oh my God.
They're both taken to court, and the judge says, well, you guys have to split the cost. And my grandfather leaves because it's Brazil in the 50s. It's the Wild West. Like, just goes over to the next town, like 3 hours down the road, and never goes back. And somewhere during all this time, he spots this absolutely beautiful 18-year-old girl named Paulina das Dores Carvalho, whose father was a colonel in the Brazilian cavalry who had worked personally with President Vargas at one point, whose mother had died in childbirth. She was the youngest, the baby of the family. She had 2 older sisters and a brother, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And she's taking care of her family, and she's working, and she makes all her own clothes, and, she's model skinny. Like, if you took her and put her on any of these America's Next Top Model shows, something like that, she would win. She's just gorgeous at this age and at this place. And she absolutely hates this little scowling Chinese man that approaches her dressed like a gangster. She says it. But he has made a bet with his best friend. As soon as he spots her, he can get a date with her for $1 It's a month's salary. So he starts stalking her to try to get this date to win the bet. To the point where, like, he'll come in the front, but she is diligently avoiding him. He'll come in the front door, she'll go out the back. And he loses her for 1 year. 1 year he doesn't see her because she's avoided him so well, and he, it's a town, like, so he just doesn't see her until he sees her again and, approaches her, and out of pity, she says she goes out on a date with him. She claims pity, but my grandfather's a damn charming guy. Yeah. Like, I've seen him work, he could probably charm the pants off a freezing man or something like that. And, so they go out on a date, and the rest is history. And they get married when she's 18, I think, or 19, and he's 20, and a year later there's my uncle, and a year after that there's my mom. And
they didn't waste much time, did they?
There's 2 other children that died in Brazil, like a little boy that never made it past 2 weeks, and a little girl that made it like 6 months, I think, and they were buried in the backyard of that house.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. How does all of the hedonism and the messing around and the philandering, how does that affect you? Do you have the Georgieff gene?
There are parts of me that are the Georgieff gene. I like going out. I like having a good time with my friends. Like, half of my family, we always find it really funny because the worst side of my family, my great aunt Faina, the one that used to go on the benders, and Alex, who led New York authorities on a cross-country manhunt when he, being 19, decided that my aunt should move, Anna, when she was only 16, should move with him to New York. They've all converted again to Christian, It's just my little part of the family that hasn't. They're all born-again Christians, though.
Okay.
But I think part of me is like, when I get old, I want to be able to tell my family, you know, my kids, you know, I had a good time, you know, I didn't do anything too crazy, because I've heard some crazy stories from my family, but, you know, I've lived enough where I can see what's going on, where I can tell you, you know, legitimately from my own experiences. And that's the thing my mom has always told me, make your own mistakes, you know.
Yeah. Live
your own life. Because if you don't live your own life, do you really want to be old? Looking back and saying, like, I wish I could have, I wish I would have. But, I've also learned from my family's mistakes. Like, I remember the night my grandmother found out my grandfather was cheating on her. And I just remember her in the bathroom crying. And it's like, you know, you see things and you're like, I never want to do that to anyone. I never want to be that. I never want that to happen. Like, if anything, I think I am the result of my family. Every aspect of me, you know. Like, where the results, you know, every adult, there's this great quote I love from a book, you know. We're all the product of the child we were. And the child I was this little kid sitting at the foot of my family listening to all these amazing globe-spanning stories, you know, and just thinking, I want to go out, I want to live, I want to see the world, I want to experience all these things you guys have experienced. But I also don't want to make your mistakes. Did I answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me.
Yeah.
Okay. This is actually Baer signing off.